Hello, everybody, and welcome to another round of World Talks, where every word matters. My name is Don Arleth. Poland's President Andrzej Duda is in China on a state visit, and that brings the leader of a NATO member to a country that has backed Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. He was scheduled to meet with Chinese leader Xi Jinping on Monday, and the most important topic of the conversation will be security and peace in Ukraine. But that's not the only item on the agenda. Bilateral trade and a visa waiver for Polish tourists will also be discussed. And now joining us here on TVP World to discuss the visit is Stankomir Nicieja, Associate Professor at the University of Opole. Hello, and thanks for joining us on TVP World today.
Hello, thank you for your invitation.
Yes, so as, of course, President Duda is visiting China, before we get to Ukraine, let's talk about bilateral relations and what President Duda can really accomplish. A visa waiver for Polish tourists. Is this important, and will Duda get it?
We will see if that agreement is achieved. That would be, of course, a significant step in developing our relations. We know that some other countries in the European Union already have that privilege of traveling to China without the visa requirement. So that would certainly, it is not a game changer in the relations, but certainly an important step in recognizing from the Chinese side the friendly cooperation that we have had so far with the nation. The Hungarians have it, the Germans have it. I think the French also have this privilege. So why not Poles if we are if we are in such cordial and open relationship with China?
And we should be, since there is a massive imbalance, trade imbalance. China exports 88% more to Poland than Poland exports to China. How does Poland seek or wish to correct this trade imbalance?
I think that this is the most important part of President Duda's visit, to make sure that this huge imbalance between Poland and China is a little bit shrunken, or at least the dynamics of that discrepancy between Poland and China is reduced. Because we have to remember, some people criticize President Duda for even going there to Beijing to meet with President Xi Jinping. But whether we like it or not, China is, after Germany, our second trade partner. And as you already mentioned, we have this significant trade deficit. Chinese market is not easy. Chinese may declare their embrace of free trade and globalization, but in fact they are very protective of their internal market. So it's not easy to enter with new products, with new goods. And Poland particularly, I think here what we can offer the Chinese is high quality agricultural produce that is in high demand in China. And President Dudas and his team, I think I see their task as to make those barriers, at least some of them, wavered. And also, as you will see today, today we have a day devoted to political meetings. President Duda met with Xi Jinping, most importantly, but also with Li Qiang, the Chinese prime minister. But tomorrow, the second leg of the visit begins, and this is almost exclusively devoted to economic matters. President Duda will have two important speeches at two conferences, one in Dalian, in the northern port city of Dalian, and then in Shanghai, Chinese business capital. So I think on our side, on Polish side, there is a clear recognition of the need to address this trade imbalance as the most important, most pressing thing. Because, of course, for us, we have the problem of the war in Ukraine, the support that China gives to Russia. But here I don't see any possibility of making any progress. While in trade balance, that such possibility certainly exists.
Certainly, and especially when it comes to, as you mentioned, Polish agricultural products. China being a massive pork importer, and if we look at that market across Europe, China is very dependent upon it. But another big development in Europe is the recent trade, the tariffs slapped on Chinese electric vehicles. Now, China has said that it would retaliate on agricultural imports to China from the European Union as a result. How is this likely to affect President Duda and his negotiations or his bid to get to boost, Polish agricultural products?
So this is the tough part on the president's side, but the Chinese are very well aware of the crucial balance between maintaining good relations and spoiling this atmosphere or destroying the trade between the two nations. We have already signed agreements, for example, with Geely, the manufacturer of electric vehicles, in regards to the Isera project. So. I don't know how advanced that is. It seems to be frozen for some time, but significant resources have been already invested in that project. We'll see. And generally, I think that the European Union, in regards to Chinese imports, has a very straightforward and I think healthy policy of cooperating with China, but imposing similar conditions on the Chinese business as the Chinese business imposes on European partners and European enterprises. So if the Chinese want to sell goods to the European Union, including Poland, they should invest in local production. They should find local partners. They should create joint ventures here. So we are not just the import market, but the side that is cooperating in the production, in the know-how, and in the development of future projects. So only on such conditions, I think, these are the healthy conditions in which both sides win. We can achieve significant progress, and I hope those talks will bring us a little bit closer to that kind of solution, rather than simply buying things from China and then watching as the trade deficit spreads further apart.
Right. Usually China is quite heavily criticized for their one-way policy when it comes to trade and the imbalances that creates. Now, probably if Duda does make some headway concerning boosting Polish exports to China, China's going to want something in return. What could potentially China want additionally from us to give Poles better access to their market?
I think the priority here is to maintain good relations with Poland and make sure that Poland will take part in the revival of the Road and Belt Initiative. We remember that's one of those most ambitious, most spectacular projects that President Xi Jinping have rolled out. It was stalled by pandemic, by the war, by the growing tensions and heightened risk of trading with China. So probably the Chinese will want to make us leaders of that Road and Belt Initiative, certainly as the biggest country in the European Union who remains neutral to that initiative. We have our own doubts. So we have to play our cards very, very carefully to make sure that our economy benefits from it, and at the same time we do not endanger our alliances with the United States and with our friends within the European Union. So far we haven't made any false steps. Poland is considered to be a friendly country for China, but is not as outgoing, and I think that's a good thing, not as outgoing as, for example, Viktor Orban's Hungary is. They get some benefits from this attitude, but this comes at the cost of inferior relations with the European Union.
It's no secret that President Duda is a staunch ally and supporter of Ukraine. Of course, he tied in the Belt and Road Initiative or project for China's reason to, want to not participate in that war and not prop up Russia. But if we look at trade between Poland and China, and if we look at trade between Russia and China, Russia's about 5 times more. Do you think that President Duda will have a difficult time, to say the least, to convince President Xi Jinping that it's not in his interest to prop up the Russian regime and help Russia continue its war effort against Ukraine?
I think that the Chinese are very well aware of the sentiments we have here in Europe and in Central Europe concerning the war. So uh, that's not the point to make. That's at least my speculation. More, it is to make sure that China continues with its policy of Russia friendly neutrality, because we may complain that China is too much supportive of the Russian war effort, but if they abandon any of the pretenses and engage in a way that, for example, Iran is engaged in cooperation with Russia, that will have catastrophic consequences for the war, for the Ukrainians, for the balance of power. So that, I think, is the main point that President Duda should make. That will be the end of the of any relations we have with China. But as I mentioned earlier, Xi is and the Chinese side are very well aware of that, and they know it, because I've heard many comments before our interview here on the Chinese side, and the many analysis on Weibo are quite in depth, and they emphasize all those things connected with war in Ukraine, with trade deficit, with a special situation in which we have here our strong dependence and alliance with the United States. So this is quite clear for the Chinese side. I don't think that President Duda needs to spend any time explaining it to the Chinese leadership.
Right, but we, at the same time, I think from one side we heavily discount Chinese intent. If we look at the trade figures from before the war, Russia and China were doing about the same amount of business that Poland does with China. Now they're in the $250 billion neighborhood as of 2023. It's said that China has a very pragmatic foreign policy. It doesn't like to intervene in the dealings of other states' affairs. Yet here we see big money. We see an increase in trade of $200 billion in just about a year's time. And of course, the situation somehow ties into what we're seeing in Taiwan. What is going to be the solution for China to see that it shouldn't be propping up Russia? Do you think that the European Union, Poland, need to take a much harsher stance? Potentially, should President Duda be putting that on the table as well? With trade, that maybe more barriers to the Polish economy will come up if Russia continues to support the Russian aggression in Ukraine? Because there we're holding the cards. I mean, 88%, right?
Yeah.
They have about 88% advantage in those terms.
We have to see that this explosive growth in trade is natural consequence of the sanctions imposed on Russia. Russia doesn't have many places to go with the business, with the petrol. But it's not only China. There is also India, our supposed Western ally. Many other countries are dealing with Russia and using that opportunity to sell more stuff, to improve their economic tables. So China simply is in the privileged position, having this large border with Russia, and at the same time having some kind of united cause of opposing the supremacy of the United States on the international stage. So I don't think that Poland has any significant role to play here. I think that both Poland and Chinese leadership are very, very well aware of those conditions. That's why we are uh, uh, organizing that visit. But I think there is another aspect that is worth mentioning, because some people in Europe, in Poland, may be skeptical about the purpose of President Duda or any other European leader going to China or receiving the Chinese president. But I think it is quite crucial that we keep the lines of communication open. You have to remember that President Xi rules China in an uncontested way. So probably only the outside leaders, political leaders from the countries from outside China, are able to show alternative interpretations of reality. They are probably the only sources of information for President Xi to see the world from a different perspective, to communicate certain things that may not be communicated to the leader in China. So I think that the most important element is that that we, after the pandemic, the visits have restarted, that we have quite regular visits from different European Union leaders. We had Chancellor Scholz, we had Xi's visit to France not so long ago, and then in this context we can see also that the role of Poland in international politics and in the European Union international politics has significantly grown, and particularly thanks to very good personal relations between President Xi and President Duda, we have some kind of advantage to make sure that certain messages, certain points of view are regularly delivered at the Chinese doorstep. And I hope that will be the most important part of this official visit to China.
Yes, and somehow help Ukraine in effect. Stankomir Nicieja, Associate Professor, University of Opole, thank you very much for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your invitation. Goodbye.